Hello, valued listeners. I am so happy that you chose to listen to this podcast. My name is Denise Mayer, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the founder and the director of Step Up Anderson Township, which is a coalition for a safe, healthy, and drug-free community. I started Step Up Anderson Township in 2018 in response to the vaping epidemic that was plaguing not only our community, but a lot of communities, most of them across the United States. So we started with that, built a coalition of concerned parents, caregivers, and professionals in the field. And so doing that, we have then embarked on other topics like high-potency marijuana, fentanyl poisoning, underage drinking, and all the mental issues that go along with those substances. So I'm so happy today to talk to you and to provide this podcast, because what we decided is we wanted to meet you where you were. So that is after school, picking up your child from sports or ballet, or you're exercising or throwing in a load of laundry, you can stop and start and listen and get the valuable information that you need to keep your kids safe. So today's episode is building resiliency in your children. And my guest today, I'm so excited, is Jake White from Vive 18. And Jake is a national speaker and a sought-after expert in the field of youth drug prevention. As the co-founder of Vive 18, he's an author and podcast host. He helps students overcome peer pressure with confidence so that they can become resilient, passionate leaders for their schools and for their communities. With over a decade of experience, Jake has contributed significantly to the substance use prevention field with works like the Vive 18 Playbook for student leaders, Beyond Alcohol, Drug, and Vaping curriculum and toolkit, and The Opposite Direction, How My Parents Kept Me Off Drugs and Alcohol. His insights and life-changing message have not only been featured in prestigious news outlets like USA Today and ABC News, but also showcased on the stages of the DEA's Youth Summit and various universities across the country. Jake is the founder of Vive 18, a youth drug prevention initiative, and Party O, a movement dedicated to sober events, demonstrating his community-focused approach to drug prevention. His initiatives have led to the launch of 25 new student clubs, furthering his impact into new communities and schools. Jake White's journey is more than just a career. It's a mission to ignite leadership and purpose into young lives for a substance-free future. And I cannot say how absolutely grateful I am to have Jake today. He is a national speaker, and I'm a nobody, but we're starting and we're trying. And I was so delighted to have him today. So, Jake, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Denise. I'm super pumped to hang out with you. And you're not a nobody. You're doing incredible work with Step Up at Anderson. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. You're very kind. But to have a national speaker, I'm so excited. And as I have often said, we can talk about all the various drugs out there till hell freezes over, and they will continually change, or their method of delivery will change. I was at a presentation on Tuesday night, and one of the parents shared that somebody in our neighborhood, little off from Anderson though, died from something that I had never heard of before. It was some different thing from ecstasy. So my point is, it is totally always evolving, changing, and more threatening in so many ways. So building resiliency in our kids is truly the only answer. It is truly the only prevention out there that is significant, which doesn't mean that we can't educate parents on what's out there, what to look for, things to be alerted to. But it also means that what the work that you do is so important. It just is. It's taken me a long time to get to that point that I really understand that, but I do. So tell us a little bit about your backstory and what motivated you to do this. You're young. I mean, I'm old. You're young. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, so I accidentally started a nationwide movement when I was in college, and here's how it happened. So growing up, just to give you the quick backstory, I'm really thankful. My parents actually chose not to drink or smoke or use drugs. They actually gave up alcohol when my sisters and I were kids. And so growing up, I did not associate a drug with adulthood. And I think that was really important for me, developing into a young adult myself. And then I did see the turmoil of addiction, though. Like I saw in my family, extended family, what could happen if someone were to start using substances and in and out of jail, hospitals, making poor decisions, failed relationships, things like that.
Mm.
And so I just made this decision. I see where drug use could lead me. I don't want to go in that direction. I'm going to choose something else. And that means learning how to have fun, make friends, and feel good without using any of those things, any of those shortcuts. And it was fine until I got to college. Like in high school, I had great friends. Like I was playing sports and music and all this fun things. And then in college, it got so weird. People, they looked at me funny, Denise. They they would
I
be like,
understand.
right? They're like,
Yeah.
Jake, this is Wisconsin. This is college. What do you
Yeah.
mean you
You
don't
don't
drink?
drink. Right. Yeah.
Like I'm some extraterrestrial. So I was like, hey, this decision is for me, not for anybody else. I'm not judging you if you do it. That's fine. This is just how I want to live. And long story short, I read this social norm stat. So it said that 1 out of every 3 college students was just like me. They chose not to drink or smoke, use any drugs. And I remember thinking, wait, I haven't heard anyone say this. Like either this statistic is wrong or the people who are, sober like me or just living drug free, they're not being open about it because probably like me, they're scared of getting ridiculed or judged or not getting invited to things on the weekends. And so I thought, I'm going to test if this is actually true. I'm going to throw a house party on my college campus and I'm just not going to serve any drugs, no alcohol, and just see what happens. That semester, we ended up throwing a party every other weekend. And by the end of the semester, had hundreds of students coming. We were sponsored by Red Bull, Pizza Hut, Subway, all these really cool brands. And then students across the nation were messaging me saying, Jake, how do you do this? Because maybe I'm on the track team and I'm trying to just stay dry for the season to perform at my best. Or maybe they're in recovery and they thought they couldn't go to college, but now they feel like they can if they had something like this. And I had people tell me, Jake, my grades were slipping. I was partying too much. And I started coming to your events and my grades are getting back up and I've got my priorities straight. Thank you for doing this. And
I
I
mean, that's
saw the
amazing.
momentum.
That is so amazing. It really is. It's amazing. Because I had chosen not to drink anything either in high school. I mean, high school and college, for various reasons, didn't really like it. And, I mean, I'm just amazed. I think this is awesome.
Yeah. And what's so funny is no matter where we go, so like we lived in a trailer for 4 months traveling to different colleges and every college would say the same thing. Hey, this is a really cool idea. I love this idea and what it could do, but it's not going to work here. Like every single one did that. They said, hey, we're like the biggest drinking school in the nation. And they would cite some statistic and every school did this. But what we found is this works on every campus. All you need is a couple people who say, hey, I'm going to do something different and they can lead and you will find we found that over 90% of students say yes to being on our invite list. It doesn't mean that they're going to come to every event, but they want to be invited to a drug-free alternative. And that's in college. Now we work with high schools and middle schools, not only doing speaking engagements, but helping them throw drug-free events and get involved in drug prevention coalitions like yours and Step Up Anderson. And so we just see our unique value in getting students excited about making positive, healthy choices and showing that you can have a community. you don't have to sacrifice your social life to make good decisions. Like you can have it all. So that's what we're all about.
And I think one of the biggest things right now is that kids, students, even adults are starved for connections, that between all the stuff on their phones and they're constantly on them. I mean, you go to dinner and there'll be an entire family. Nobody's talking. They're just all on their phones. And it just seems like right now, well, anytime really, but particularly now with the phones, these kids are looking for connection, So if going to the bar is their only idea of connection, that's sending a terrible message, but you're sending the right message that you can connect and, boys can meet girls, whatever, that kind of, all of that, without the alcohol or drugs,
And that's so true. It's a natural motivator for everyone. We're designed to be in community with one another. That's how we operate at our best. And if you tell a student, hey, don't use drugs, or the best intentioned message, it's missing a major gap in it. If it doesn't have, well, how am I going to find community? How am I going to make friends and have fun and feel good if I'm not doing it this way? Because this is the one that media tells me to use. This is the one that the ads and popular culture tells me to use. So if you're going to ask me to do something different, you better have some better alternatives for me. And that's what we try to bring to everyone that we work with, is we can't leave out this missing component, which is exactly like you said, community. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think these generations that are growing up right now, they experienced a couple years with seemingly no community.
None, no.
Right. And now that could be a really tough thing growing up. Imagine your brain growing at such a fast pace and you miss a couple years of connection and all the brain development that's supposed to happen during that time. We have to be creative in how we work with them, how we help them, because they struggled in ways that we won't understand.
Right. And I think the mental health aspect of that has been just paramount. I mean, when they do studies with kids in college, I mean, the percentage of them that are stressed and anxious, I mean, high school too, actually even elementary to a certain extent, but these are the kids that are trying to pick a career, trying to figure out where they're going, what they're going to do with their life. And then they feel anxious and, depressed. That's just a recipe for disaster. So, I mean, if they can connect, and I think knowing that you don't have to have a substance in your body to loosen up enough to have a conversation is a very important message.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think about the social anxiety or just the stress you feel. There's a really interesting study that I came across. I don't know if you've heard about this one.
I don't know.
But it's, they interviewed parents and they interviewed students. They asked the parents, what percentage, or do you think that your child would use a substance in order to deal with stress? And 7% of parents said that their child would. They interviewed students to say, if you use drugs, why do you use? 70% of students said that it was because of stress-related issues.
Wow.
So there's a big misconception there, right?
Big misconception. And I think actually, since I've been doing this for almost 7 years, that doesn't completely shock me from the standpoint that the parents, you have this certain mentality, never my kid. My child is so involved in sports, or my child is so involved in whatever. They would never even have time for that. And so, though, that doesn't really surprise me totally, unfortunately.
Yeah. The good news, though, is that the majority of students actually do not use substances. They're making healthy choices, but sometimes they feel alone, like I did, right? I was on a campus with 9,000 people, thinking I was the only one who was sober. That's so weird. That shouldn't happen. And that's also my personal drive, why I do this, is I never want a student to feel like they're alone or like they don't matter.
Right.
They shouldn't feel isolated for making a healthy choice. They should feel celebrated. They should have community, and they should feel encouraged to bring other people into that life too.
Inspired, right.
That's how we save more lives.
To feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to tell me about, I have had, like I said, I've been doing this for a while. Um, I have had I will say a difficult time. Yeah, that's probably fair. Getting into the schools to even like get information to parents or, and I understand that, schools have to be so careful of who and what they let in. I understand all that.
Yeah.
But something like what you're doing is so important. So tell me what that was like. I know you said you started with colleges, but then worked your way down to high school and middle school. And I don't know about elementary, but just tell me about that journey, what that was like.
Yeah. So in short, we serve everyone from elementary through like first year of college, sometimes Greek life as well.
Oh,
So
good.
it
Yeah.
is the gamut. But the funny thing is we are tailored. Each audience is tailored to what's appropriate for that age group, what they care about,
Mm-hmm.
the things that they find interesting and
Mm-hmm.
funny and relevant. But when it started, I thought this would just be a company where we could literally go teach students how to throw drug-free events and get sponsors and build this community. What I realized was, or took for granted, is number one, in order to do something well, you have to spend hundreds, thousands of hours doing it, right? I think they
Yeah.
say 10,000 hours to become a
Yeah.
pro.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I was going to do this after my 9 to 5 job and then change the world from 5 to 9, like I would be a zombie of a human.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it was not going to work. So
No.
challenge number one, how do you make a business doing good in the world that actually makes income as well so you can sustain the organization?
Right.
That was the biggest hurdle. And I won't bore you with all the details, but like that was hurdle number one. And number two is finding the right audience and
Mm-hmm.
leaders. And
Yeah.
that's where speaking really comes in because students were asking for this program. I just had to figure out how do we pay for it? If we're going to be traveling to
Mm-hmm.
schools across the country,
Yep.
fulfilling this need, someone's got to be, quote, the sponsor or the funder. And how do we figure that out? But the students and the schools, they recognize we have an issue, right? They care
Yeah,
about
they
school
all do.
culture,
They all
graduation
do.
rates.
Mm-hmm.
They care about how their students survive and thrive in their families, but
Mm-hmm.
they have like schools have 1,000 problems though that
Yes,
they
they
have to
do.
tackle.
Yeah.
So what I've found is partners like you, Denise, coalitions across the country, y'all are actually the best partners for us to work with because you are focused on one thing, which
Yep.
is making your community safer by
Mm-hmm.
reducing substance use and all that it surrounds, right?
Right.
Suicidal ideation.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. We've had a fair
right.
share of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And even things like basic needs, because you and I know that drug prevention is not talking about drugs. It's about creating a life so amazing that a student doesn't need to reach out to a substance to feel like they have to cope.
Absolutely.
So for us, it was the schools were asking for us, right? We just had
Mm-hmm.
to figure out different things that they have available, like coalitions,
Mm-hmm.
like Title I or Title IV funding, different grants from,
Mm-hmm.
opioid settlement funds when Juul got sued, stuff like that. How can we actually use those funds to save more lives from going down the
Yeah.
same path? And so I don't know if that answered your question to the level you
It did.
wanted it, but
Well, no, it did. It did. And the takeaway I'm getting from what you just said was that you got students interested in wanting to do what you're doing. And so then they therefore can put some pressure on the school, the teachers, whatever, to say, hey, why can't we bring this in? And I think the idea of having drug-free events is so important. The kids have nothing to do. They might have a basketball game or they might have a football game or whatever like that, or they put on their play but they're hanging out. They're just hanging out with not very much to do. And so then you've got all the emphasis on video games. We just did a thing on underage gambling that they're getting involved in that. So there's a lot of negatives that they can embrace, but
Mhm.
finding something positive, just even if it's, a drug-free event where like you said, there's free pizza and there's whatever, but there's kids coming together, maybe dancing, a dance off. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out.
Yeah,
Would be so important.
right. And it's important that they're in the driver's seat,
Mm-hmm.
that they come up with the ideas. And so what's funny is when we work with schools, right? We do an amazing, high energy, really fun, positive presentation on choices. We share a little bit about substances because they believe some things that are false. So we're
Right.
going to make it fun of them learning the truth,
Yeah.
but then also making sure that they feel empowered to be the solution because they can't. I mean, I would love it if they brought in Vive 18 every single year, but I would love it more if students helped the program live on because they're more effective at it. It's more
Absolutely.
cost effective and sustainable. And then
Right.
they can go out and grow the movement and impact more people. Like I've had people that advise me on business. They're like, Jake, you shouldn't be giving away so much stuff, or you should raise your prices, or you should do these things, or like hold back on what you give because what if they don't bring you back? And I'm like, you're missing it. This is a mission. This is like the
Right.
business is essential to run the mission. And so,
That's exactly right. And, we
yeah,
are a not-for-profit, and we operate on a few donations so low, you wouldn't even believe it, but also some mini grants and that type of thing, because you have to pay for podcasts and you have to pay for, different, insurance. I mean, whatever it is, you have to pay for it. And I think that, when they say, oh, well, you need, always it's sustainability. And that's important. Don't get me wrong. But you can't sustain something that's not ever created. You have to start somewhere,
yep,
and you have to get some legs to it and some people to follow you and all that kind of stuff. So no, I totally get that. I totally get that. And I'm so excited that you could maybe get some of this, opioid money or the jewel money or whatever. It couldn't go for a better cause.
right. Yeah, it's such an appropriate fit for us to help out with that.
It really is. So of the different, things that you've done that are, drug-free, alcohol-free or whatever, give me a couple top ideas that you think are the best or that you've gotten the best response from for drug-free events.
Yeah, the students these days, like some things they get excited about, depending on what, you know, if they're rural or
Sure.
right in the city, whatever that might be.
Hmm. Hmm.
We've had students do barn parties. We've had
Good.
students do, I love this one. It was in a gloha. So it was a Hawaiian glow party theme.
Oh,
We've
okay.
had them just say, hey, we love sports. We're going to set up a glow volleyball tournament. Um, One of my favorites was they set up a 200-foot slip and slide down a hill in their town
Oh,
and they just
fun.
invited all their friends.
How fun.
So yeah, it's just like, hey, what's a good excuse for us to get together? So and
Hmm.
have so much fun. Like we don't even need substances. And then they can introduce some information or some education around the topic and invite their friends to be a part of it. So it's really, really up to them. What I like to tell
Yeah.
them is if you create an experience where
Hmm.
people leave with one new friend and one new experience, you've done your job. Like
Absolutely.
that is all you have to do. So when we facilitate with them, we have what's called the Vive 18 playbook. And it shows like, hey, you need a person who's going to fill this role. Maybe it's logistical, maybe it's planning. You need the person who's going to make the venue like look the way that it should. You need the life of the party whose job is to connect people and to
Hmm.
make people
Hmm.
feel welcome
Right.
when they show so they don't feel alone, but instead immediately they feel accepted and like they're part of the event and they'll stay longer and they'll contribute to the event as well using their gifts. So like all
Oh, it
that
just
stuff is to
makes so
say,
much sense. It makes so much sense. It really does.
yeah,
You don't
and we
want to
have to
be the
let the
first
students
person
run
at
it.
a party that knows no one. So you have to have that, draw them in,
Mhm.
make them feel comfortable, that type of thing. And there's
Yeah.
so many, we have a very big school system. We have 2 high schools, a middle school, and 6 elementaries out here. And
Okay.
so what works maybe at one school maybe might not work as much as at the other. It's funny the different cultures that you run into.
Yeah.
But I just when I heard and I'm going to give Operation Parent a plug because they are
Yeah.
awesome. They are, aren't they? So
I
I
love
say that
them.
every time I get a chance that Operation Parent out of, I think it's Lexington.
Yeah.
Is it Louisville or Lexington? I get mixed up.
Well, I know it's Kentucky. I don't know which one.
It's Kentucky. Yeah, one of the two. But anyway, they've done a wonderful job for the last couple of years with these webinars. And that's how I found Jake. And I think that, yeah, they do a great job. Anybody that doesn't know about them, you better start learning because they've got some great stuff. They really
Right.
do. Yeah.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
so glad because this resiliency is so important. And talking to parents, of course, is important if you can get a hold of them to talk to them. It's an isolated group, it seems like, doesn't it? I mean, it's just like try to get to them, it's not that
Mhm.
easy. And then I'll do something, I'll say, well, did you see that? Well, no, I didn't really see that because, for one thing, everybody's on their phones, but that's a real problem too. So
Hey, well, a problem is an opportunity, right?
that's
So
true.
here's since we're talking about resiliency, I'll share
Mhm.
three things. If you're a parent listening to this and you're like, hey, this is cool, like obviously the program is awesome, but what can I do?
Right.
And I would say I'll share a couple quick things. The first one is to
I got
understand
time.
that you are actually more impactful in your child's life than you think. You think
True.
they don't listen, you
True.
think that they ignore you,
hmm
but I can absolutely tell you, as someone who was a child at one point, and from prevention science, that parents are one of the number one protective factors, which means
Absolutely.
that you can protect your child from making risky decisions.
hmm
Um, and one of the biggest thing is how you spend time with them
hmm
and how you develop boundaries with them.
Okay.
So, and the easiest way without going on a tangent, right, is that when they know the expectations that you have for them and that you have really high ones and that you
hmm
think that they're great and smart and capable, you have them doing chores, you have them in activities, you expect them to get good grades. Um, those are all really awesome things that can prevent substance use. But I like to show that a resilient student has three things, the three C's of resiliency, I call them. So they have confidence,
hmm
they have community,
Yeah.
and they have coping skills.
hmm
If you have those three things, it doesn't matter what kind of pressure you feel from outside, you can resist that pressure because you are resilient. It can bounce
Right.
off you.
Right.
Confidence, right? Confidence comes from those things that you do that, like, right, maybe it's your sport, maybe it's your
hmm
music,
hmm
maybe you know who you are, it's your values, your faith,
hmm
whatever that might
hmm
be.
hmm
Confidence can come from that. And also you can get community from those things too, like healthy, supportive community. And that leads to the third one of coping skills as well.
Right.
Because if you learn positive coping skills and strategies, you're less likely to go to one that's more of a negative coping strategy that might feel good for a second, but ultimately creates more problems immediately and down the road.
But you're so right. Parents are so important in building those three C's in their children. And, I often say, talk to your kids. Don't sit down at the dining room tables. Now we're going to have a talk. Those don't work very well. But do these little talks here and there, over and over again with a different concept by asking them what they think about something. Not say, you shouldn't be doing marijuana because this is this and this. And I was at a thing and I heard this. Instead, say, hey, you know what? I was at this thing and I kind of heard about this. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's really going on? And those open ended questions, I think, make such a difference in the communication skills. And confidence is attractive. It really is a very attractive thing, not only in kids, but in adults. If you meet somebody that you know is confident in their own skin, you are attracted to them. And so therefore, I think that attracts other young people to those people. And, we often think of them, well, they're the leaders or whatever. They're not always the leaders. They can be, of course, but sometimes they're not. But they just exude this confidence about themselves because they feel good about who they are and what they choose. And I think that's important. So yeah, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think we all have a chance to model this too.
Oh,
And
sure.
if stress is one of the top reasons why students would use, then it would make sense for us to try to model what are some healthy ways that we can relieve stress. And I can't even think of how many times I have heard adults say these, I need 4 words. After being frustrated, after feeling stressed, I need a drink.
Absolutely.
Like, wow,
Absolutely.
there's
Yep.
probably and then we get
Mhm.
mad when we think like, well, how are students doing this underage? Don't they know it's affecting their brains? Don't they know?
Yeah,
They, as a young person, we desperately want to be older. As an older person, we
definitely.
desperately want to be younger. Like
Yeah.
they're, they're
Never
modeling
happened.
what we do. Like they're just
Right.
modeling it.
Absolutely, they are.
So I like to ask, like for me, when I do my presentations, I start out with drumming. So I ask for a drum set. We do this huge crowd experience with the drums.
Oh,
But the
cool.
reason why I do that is number one, it's a good hook to get them interested in hearing from me.
Yeah.
But two, it models my healthy coping skill.
Yeah.
I use music, I use drumming. And then at the end, I teach them how to play the drums to solidify the fact that, hey, this isn't really about me, but what are the things that you can learn? Because I just taught you how to drum in 90 seconds. So if you can learn that skill set that's
Yeah.
healthy and positive and can build a better future, imagine what you could do with a lifetime of skill sets.
So true. I always say you build confidence by learning something all the time. To have that kind of brain that just wants to keep learning. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're living in such a difficult time, in my opinion. I mean, aside from even the COVID years, just in general with the phones and with everything else, I just feel like we're not helping them enough. We're not being there for them enough. And just like you said on the modeling thing, there's so many myths out there, like kids in Europe, because they have a lower age to start drinking, they end up knowing how to do it more. And so their numbers are much less. Their numbers are way higher.
Yeah, that's not true.
It's not true. And another one is like, well, I'll just let my daughter or son drink with his friends at our house because I know them where they are and what they're doing. Oh my goodness. No, that's a terrible idea. Yeah, just a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I have relatives that started that way and now are full blown problems. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah. And
Yeah.
you're so right about that parents had the most sway with their kids. And that's why I think the percentages of the ones that don't do any of this is so high. The problem that we're trying to get to is the 20+% that are dabbling and taking this risky behaviors because they're not getting that from their parents. All parents aren't created equal. Some are wonderful. Some are really good, active listeners. And that's my favorite thing, active listening. So that's just another thing, the speaker says what they think, and then the listener listens and he has to repeat it back, what they think they heard. I think that's a great thing. I was at a thing the other night. And I said, I'm going to practice that on my husband. But, it's just that active listening it validates the child or the student or whatever, that the parent is actually really listening to what they're saying, not thinking over them for the next thing they want to tell them. And we
Yes.
know the negatives don't work. We know, don't do drugs, just say no, whatever. Kids are too smart for that. They want the science behind that, why they shouldn't be doing
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yes. And what's interesting, I just learned this, is that the human brain it thinks in pictures. So when we say don't use drugs, we're picturing
Drugs.
using drugs.
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite quotes is from Mother Teresa. It said, like, a reporter asked me why I'm not going to these anti-war rallies. And she said, well, because anti-war is not something I can do. But if you invite me to a peace rally, I'll be there.
No.
Yeah, that blew
That
me away.
visualization. Yeah. That makes sense.
I can promote peace. I can do something with it. And it is anti-war. Like, it's achieving the thing.
Of course. Of course it is. Yeah.
If our students are involved in healthy community coping skills and they have confidence, like all those positive things, the negative issues are going to bounce off. We don't have to have all the updated research and information on this one new drug, which again is going to change, like you said, in the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's build a foundation. And this stuff hasn't changed. Like,
no,
I'm a Christian. I read the Bible.
Me too.
Thousands of years ago, they were struggling with the same stuff.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The answers are clear. It's like, it's values. That's what builds us.
Right.
And makes us resilient.
Exactly. 100%. And I think, some of the other things that build that resiliency, like you mentioned, are, of course, faith and doing volunteer work. I I have 6 grandkids, but I have a granddaughter that's in the 7th grade, and I invited her to a church thing that I'm not a member of that particular church, but they were doing a Thanksgiving thing and filling boxes, for the whatever. And I knew about it through a collaborative I'm in, and I thought, I'm going to see if I can get, because they always need service hours or whatever. I cannot even begin to tell you how positive that was for her. She was just so excited to be a part of that and to be valued. And later, even she said that she was at one of the schools that benefited from these boxes, and she said, "Oh, I saw our red boxes at the school," and whatever. So, I mean, stuff like that is just so important for making the kids feel important and validated and giving them ideas. And I think she will want to do that again. And I just think there's so many missed opportunities like that, where you might hear that something's going on at your church or at a some other community thing, and you think, "Oh, I don't really feel like doing that." Instead of feeling that way, you should think, that's an opportunity for me to do something with one of the grandkids or one of your children. And it makes such a difference. It really does.
Yeah. And so that's called self-efficacy.
Yeah.
And when a student feels like they can make a difference, they're more likely to protect themselves and their friends because they feel like they can.
Right.
And it's so important. I love what you said too. Like, volunteering is a great way to do that. I'm a fanboy of this this doctor, Dr. Crystal Collier, and she was actually on the.
I love her. I have several of her books. They're probably behind me on my bookcase there. Oh yeah.
Oh my
She's
gosh.
amazing.
She is so cool. She's taught me so much. Like on my podcast, I've interviewed her twice just because I was like, "Hey, can I learn more from you?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember her teaching me, and we were on that Operation Parent webinar together because we just love doing things together. But she had said this kind of rule to follow is that when your child can do something, they should do something because it builds their sense of self-efficacy.
Absolutely.
And that's raising their confidence, like you mentioned. And we wonder, like, well, why is my student like just following the crowd or doing this to fit in? Is if we don't feel like we're enough or validated, we try to find it in other places.
Right.
And developmentally, like students are doing that in middle school or just a little younger. So it makes sense. They're dyeing their hair all the time. They're trying different clothes. They're checking out different friend groups. They're in the skateboarding 1 week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Piercings.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, I used to be into volleyball, but now I'm into snowboarding. Like, this is, they're trying on all these different things. But again, if you have that foundation of self-efficacy and that confidence that those things that they're trying, as parents, you can actually be more of a guardrail, help them be that frontal lobe that isn't developed yet. So thinking about the long term.
Absolutely.
And you're partnering with them to get through that time period.
I used to actually go to the high schools years ago and do some things on self-esteem and how you can work on those things. And one of the things that I always remembered and liked is that if you think of yourself in a carnival situation, where you're in a room with just mirrors all the way around, not distorted ones, just mirrors. And that's sort of the way that a child sees themselves, by what's mirrored to them from the adults and other kids too. And that's why we have to be so careful with what they're seeing. That, that they're seeing that this parent thinks that they're the greatest and whatever, but also all the other, that's why it's so important to find other adults in their lives that are also mirroring all those positives to them, because you don't come out of the wound feeling like I can do it all. That's a growth thing. So, you want to, so you want to really make sure that the people surrounding them are giving them the positives that they need to become productive adults. And like you said, to be resilient. So I've always thought that, that, you take 10 kids and you get them when they're like in the first grade or even kindergarten, and you look at them and you think, okay, this one might end up in the long run to be like a wonderful doctor that discovers the cure for cancer. And then this one might be, something else great. And then you have a couple that maybe not so great, but they all start out the same way. It's just the way all this is mirrored at them, and allows them to grow and to be everything they can be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the whole purpose of resilience, right? Is that studies show that you could be really, really smart, but not be that successful or
Right.
not
Oh,
that
yeah.
happy. But resilience is that determining factor that says, I will find a way.
I will
I
find a
will
way.
keep
Yep.
working. I will keep
Mm-hmm.
trying.
Mm-hmm.
And since I'm, an I don't know if entrepreneur is the right word, but right, I started a movement, started a company. And so I listen to a lot of stories of entrepreneurs as well. And that's where they harp all the time. They're like, hey, listen, everyone, and I can attest to this. There is plenty of people that are smarter than I that are not doing the same stuff or aren't, quote, as successful in their field. But the only difference is I didn't quit. I've been doing this for a decade. I'm not as smart, but I just kept doing the same thing every day. So eventually you're going to get it right.
Well, that's 100% right. And that's perseverance. And, I laughed that somebody once said it's like a dog with a bone. I'm not giving up, I mean, at least not yet. I mean, so I'm going to keep going. And I'm same with you. Of course, you're much younger. I love that. And I think that confidence, like I said, is so attractive. And when you're not going to give up, people recognize that. And it's not about how smart you are. It's how dedicated you are and how passionate you are and your ideas, which you have amazing ideas to try to reach these kids. I'm so in awe of what you're doing. I really am. I mean that sincerely. And that's why I reached out. I thought, oh, he's never going to agree to this. And then you did right away. I was so validated. I thought, wow, well, and I want you, we have at least, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes left, but I don't want to close out at the end here without you telling everybody how they can get involved and how they could make a donation if they wanted to donate. I'm proud. I'm not proud that, I mean, I'll say, we need donations or, if we're going to keep up this work and we want to get more and more schools. And, I would love to find out a couple of the universities around here, how they would get started on some of this. Cause I've got grandchildren that are in college as well. And I just love the idea, but I'm thinking more high school right now.
Yeah.
How they can have these events. They do elementary events that, obviously are drug free because they're promoted by the schools. So like a skating thing or or whatever. But high school, it's a total drop off. It's sports, maybe a show that they're doing, band. And then anybody that doesn't fit in those categories, I don't know what they do. Not much, not anything positive is what I would say.
Yeah.
So,
well, the things that, right, if you're listening to this and think, hey, this is cool, I want to do something
right.
With Vive 18 and check that out. First, go to vive18.com, VIVE18.com, and check out our different programs because it's not just college. We, like I said, so we can do some elementary education, very age appropriate, very positive. We're not exposing them to things. We're just teaching them about how to make decisions and that you would only take a drug or a medicine from the doctor to your parents to you. So like that's the takeaway. The middle school and the high school is a lot about those choices, building resiliency with skill sets instead of taking shortcuts. And then our college program as well. But I would say too that I would love for people to donate to their local coalition because they're the ones who are going to implement these things on the ground. They might choose to bring us in and partner with what they're doing because here's our like special sauce.
Yeah.
We can get young people excited about making healthy choices, but we cannot be in your area 365 days a year.
No.
Denise is. So if you support an organization like that and volunteer for that and share some of your funds with them, you're going to see I would say like the exponential growth, the compound growth and safety in your community from that. And then she can reach out to us or different organizations and schools can say, hey, let's do something in the elementary school, middle school, and the high school to get students while they're making and learning at a fast, rapid rate. We can do something at the colleges as well. But we also have a curriculum. So it's 18 prevention activities that people could do at home or at school. And so it's called Beyond Drugs, Alcohol, and Vaping. Because again, we know it's not just teaching them about substances, it's about all these things: connection, success, choices, influence, vision, goal setting, that kind of stuff. And then y'all can start a student-led club to throw events, no matter what age it is.
That would be so amazing. Honestly, that would. Even if I could get, the presentation into the community, but it's so difficult. It is so difficult to make that happen. But I don't
All
give
it
up.
takes
Yeah.
is one champion, Denise. You just need one champion.
That's what I need. One champion. Right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to continue to work on it. But yeah, I'm just so excited that you were here today to talk about this. And I will continue to follow Vive 18. And so we are a 501c3 as well. We are just trying to get more and more people to look at our, listen to our podcast, of course, which is Step Up to Save Our Children. But also we have a great website with so many resources on there, which is www.stepupanderson.org. And people can do that as well. But I am so grateful to have you here today. And now, are you on, your podcasts are on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Your podcast?
Yeah. So
I'm going to talk about that a minute.
Sure. Yeah. If you like this podcast, you'll probably also like ours. It's called the Drug Prevention Power Hour.
Yep.
And Denise, I want to get you on an episode with me so you can talk more about Step Up Anderson and all the great work that you're doing. And you'll see we do Mondays. Every Monday, there's a new episode with subject matter experts, and then also just people on the ground doing the work in schools, in coalitions, and all that great stuff.
Well, I think we're actually scheduled. I think I scheduled me to be on your podcast on February 7th. Pretty sure.
Amazing. Yes.
So we're going to be chatting some more, and I'm very looking forward to it. This has probably been the easiest interview I've ever done. It's just amazing. You would just argue. And I love Dr. Collier. She's awesome. She's really awesome too. So
Denise, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
To end on?
Yeah.
What is something that Step Up Anderson is working on or doing right now that you're really excited about that, people listening should probably know about?
Well, mostly this new podcast is the thing. We have a prevention first umbrella organization here in the greater Cincinnati area. And we were just chosen for the Coalition of the Year Award for 2025. So I am very proud, humbled and excited about that. And actually, they were the ones that said, why don't you try doing a podcast? I thought they were crazy. And then I started doing it. And I love it because I don't have to have post-traumatic stress disorder when I do a presentation and 10 people show up. It's like, oh, yeah. So this is much easier in some respects. But we continue.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I just think it's great. We do other things. Of course, there'll be a healthy habits that the school puts on. It's a poster contest for the elementary that happens always in the spring. And we do the prizes for that and stuff like that. So we have like a year-round thing that we did. We just brought screenagers under the influence into the schools and bought that for the 2 high schools and the middle school. And we also do that. We had a community presentation of that. It's such a great movie. And that's another great place to direct people. So, well, Jake, thank you so much. I'm not kidding. This has been great. And I so appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Jake. You have a great weekend. Thank you all for listening. You can see these podcasts on YouTube, social media like Facebook, Twitter, etc., and also on LinkedIn. And then you can also listen on Spotify. So please put us down, subscribe, like, share. We would so appreciate the growth we need. So thank you all so much. I hope you gained some information from this, and we hope to see you on the next one. Thank you.